A reading from the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 21, verses 33 to 43 and 45 to 46. Passage taken from the Message version of the Bible. Jesus said to the high priests and leaders of the people, "Here is another story. Listen closely. There was once a man, a wealthy farmer, who planted a vineyard. He fenced it, dug a wine press, put up a watchtower, then turned it over to the farm hands and went off on a trip. When it was time to harvest the grapes, he sent his servants back to collect his profits. The farm hands grabbed the first servant and beat him up. The next one they murdered. They threw stones at the third, but he got away. The owner tried again, sending more servants. They got the same treatment. The owner was at the end of his rope. He decided to send his son. Surely, he thought, they will respect my son. But when the farm hands saw the son arrive, they rubbed their hands in greed. This is the heir. Let us kill him and have it all for ourselves. They grabbed him, threw him out, and killed him. Now, when the owner of the vineyard arrives home from his trip, what do you think he will do to the farm hands? He will kill them. A rotten bunch, a good riddance, they answered. Then he will assign the vineyard to farm hands who will hand over the profits when it is time." Jesus said, "Right, and you can read it for yourselves in your Bibles. The stone the masters threw out is now the cornerstone. This is God's work." We rub our eyes. We can hardly believe it. This is the way it is with you. God's kingdom will be taken back from you and handed over to a people who will live out a kingdom life. When the religious leaders heard this story, they knew it was aimed at them. They wanted to arrest Jesus and put him in jail, but intimidated by public opinion, they held back. Most people held him to be a prophet of God. The Gospel of the Lord. Reflections on the Gospel according to Matthew chapter 21, verses 33 to 43, 45 and 46. We remember the famous song of the Vineyard composed by Isaiah, which talks about a winegrower who prepared the soil, carved it, cleaned it from the stones, planted some precious vines, and then built a tower, and then expected it to produce grapes, wine, joy, but instead produced inedible bunches of wild grapes. This is the sad story of the unreciprocated love of God for his people. Jesus knows this song of the wine very well, and in the parable he recalls precisely all these concerns of the Lord for his people. We are at the end of the Gospel according to Matthew and also at the end of the life of Jesus. The top religious authorities are about to commit a great crime. The Lord watched over Israel and watches over the Christian community today. After entrusting the vineyard to the peasants, the Lord, the owner of the vineyard, went far away. It represents the Lord who has now entrusted his people with the mission of producing joy. Now we are waiting for the fruits. What was expected of these servants who were entrusted with the vineyard of Israel? Book of Isaiah had taught them, "Learn to do good, seek the right, make justice your aim, redress the wronged, hear the orphan's plea, defend the widow." Those are the fruits the Lord of the vineyard wanted. The Lord loves his vineyard so much that he continues to send his prophets. But Israel rejected the prophets, killed them. The owner of the vineyard loves this vineyard so much that finally he sends his own son. But the son was removed from the vineyard. The managers expelled the son and killed him. The parable clearly describes what Jesus foresaw. He realized that the religious authorities were about to take him out of the way, expel him from the vineyard. In fact, Jesus is executed outside the holy city as if he were someone who contaminated it. Today, our Christian community must be careful because the danger of chasing God's Son out of the vineyard is current for us. The Son represents the Son of God, the gospel. When we cast the gospel out, we are chasing the Son of God out of the vineyard. Think of the challenges the Christians face on values of family, sacrament of marriage, debates on abortion, and many more issues. Many in the church follow the values of the world, chase away Christ and His gospel. What is the result of throwing the gospel out of our lives? Wars, crimes, destruction of creation, despair, and loneliness. This parable is addressed to us today. Open our eyes, recognize the Son. Don't throw him out of the vineyard.